things. Like talking to Josh Neighbors from Crystal Ball College Football's Neighborhood Watch. Josh, thanks for hopping on with us today. Always great to talk to you. It's been a weird, like when it comes to college football news, before we get into week one, it's been a very weird week of news when it comes to realignment. You know, the Mountain West and AAC are both making pitches to the remaining Pac-2 schools, the ACC and Stanford and Cal and SMU. How do you shake out everything that's happened here in the mad dash to find a home for the Pac-4 and SMU, I guess?
Yeah, good to talk to you, Paul. It's been strange. I mean, the ACC stuff, like it's a whole lot of them playing some, three-dimensional chess, I guess, to try and keep Clemson and FSU happy, right? Like SMU's taking no money at all for what looks like a long period of time, and Stanford and Cal are taking a reduced price, and then they're going to have this extra little pot of cash, it sounds like, to spread amongst the remaining schools, and they might do it in a way where they do it evenly, or they might do it in that kind of performance bonus, to use it, to steal a term from combat sports, like a performance bonus type way, right? So, but here's the thing about it. I mean, those two schools do pretty well, Clemson and FSU, but there's no guarantee that those schools win the league and whatnot. So it's this, trying to figure something out with that. Oregon State and Washington State, those are kind of the left behind schools. And we talked about, I do think it's likely they find a home. I think it's actually a credit to them. Like, just think about how good their football programs have done, despite the fact that they are not the best football programs in their state. Oregon State last year had so much success under Jonathan Smith. And then I would say Washington State, and I know the Nick Rolovich hire wasn't excellent, but ever since Mike Leach has come in, they've done a pretty good job, remaining relevant, remaining like a solid program. And even before that, even Ryan Leaf's teams obviously went to a Rose Bowl, which is a massive deal. But these programs have found a way to have some success, and it feels like because of that success in major conferences, they're not going to be totally left by the wayside. They will find a home, whether it is the AAC, whether it is the Mountain West. Obviously, it's not what they wanted, but it is the new age of college sports that we are in, and particularly college football, that, it's just kind of a challenge to find a home.
The AAC has more money. Do you think that's where they're going to go, even though geographically the Mountain West would be, much cheaper on them for everything else?
Yeah, I hate to be the generic. Everybody's chasing money these days, but like that's the whole point of the exercise, right? So, I guess the one thing is, like, if the money works out, I mean, if you do the cost analysis, right, and it's like, all right, AAC offers us more money, Mountain West better travel, which one nets us more cash? I hate to be like it's all about money, but it is. So I guess if the AAC does net you more money, that is probably the right move, and also visibility too. Like AAC puts you on ESPN, things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Josh, we are two actual games this week, not in the Big 12, but games all across the country. USC playing San Jose State, Notre Dame against Navy. Do you feel that, we know that USC is going to be a playoff contender. They've got the returning Heisman Trophy winner, Caleb Williams, probably the top pick in the 2024 draft coming back. All the things they have across the board. It's really going to come down to defense for them. Do you think Notre Dame, legitimate contender?
No, I guess not. Like last year their offense was so underwhelming. And I don't know if just finding a new quarterback in Sam Howell really fixes that. The one thing Sam Howell does, I think for sure, compared to Tyler Buchner and then compared to Drew Pine, who played for them last year, is that, it does give them a vertical passing game. And like, we're seeing right now, I know Drew Pine's been banged up, but he couldn't beat out, new quarterback Jaden. Once again, he's beat up, but like Jaden Rashada. And then we're also seeing Tyler Buchner. They brought him to Alabama, but he has not been named, at least to my knowledge, as a starter yet at Alabama. So these are two guys that were the quarterbacks to them last year, and things didn't go well for them. So this adds a new element to their passing game. Obviously, they want to see if they can stretch the field more. But they played some low-scoring slugfest, some upsetting contests last year. So I think Marcus Freedom, having the defensive background, things will be good. The recruiting has been better, but not like all the way better, I think, in the way that we, some folks thought it might be with Marcus Freeman. So this is a huge year for them. They have to win around 9-10 games for it to be considered a success. And A lot of people are used to having Brian Kelly around. So we'll see with them. I don't think this is too much of a test for them. I don't think Navy's bringing a lot to the table in this game. So, but I am excited to see what the new offense looks like with Sam Howell. And is this an offense that's going to be able to stretch the field a bit more?
Josh, earlier in the show, we learned two things about Notre Dame from one of our guests. One, that they recruit a preferred walk-on quarterback specifically to help them get ready for Navy every year because they need somebody who can run the triple option in practice. And right. Two, you cannot take online classes at Notre Dame.
I had no idea that was a thing. Really?
Yeah. They make everybody go to class, like into physical, like I say, go to class, like online classes is going to class, but you still have to walk your happy ass into a classroom, sit at a desk and listen to a teacher.
Well, this is exactly why Brian Kelly left. I mean, and here's the deal. Like, I'm not sure how you feel, Paul, about Brian Kelly, but I believe it's really hard to make an argument that he's not one of the best 5 coaches in college football. Like, you really have to work your tail off to convince me that that's not the case, because if you consider all of the things, and look, Notre Dame's an excellent brand. We all understand that. But the academic requirements with which they have, like I went to school with some kids who got in there, but like it's a fist fight, man. Like, you better be a smart kid. And that does limit them. And we already saw last year the success Brian Kelly had in year number 1. We're seeing it year number 2. They're a top 5 team preseason. I think they were picked to win the SEC West, if I'm not mistaken. 2, he is an excellent football coach, but this is why he left, because you know how challenging that is. And I do feel bad for Notre Dame fans because, well, I mean, to some extent, because it feels like in modern college football, like you do need to be not bending some rules, but you gotta basically make every single exception. Like, these large state universities generally are the ones competing for championships. And even Ohio State, which is a really good academic institution, and Michigan to that extent as well, like, they're breaking the rules for the players. I know a kid who went, a couple kids actually went to Michigan, and look, I probably couldn't get into Michigan, but I definitely know they couldn't get into Michigan. And these schools are making exceptions to their players. Notre Dame is not one of those schools. And that's why we know it's just really difficult to win there, because there are certain stipulations and things you have to be doing. Like, you have to go to class.
Yeah. I grew up going to Catholic school. I know a lot of people who went to Notre Dame. A lot of people. Jack, you too. Like, I think I know maybe just from my town, Fort Myers, Florida, 20 Notre Dame grads. Maybe 20.
Smart people?
Oh, ridiculously smart. Right. Crazy smart. Crazy smart. If you ask my Catholic mother where she would have rather me gone to school, Florida State, where I went, or Notre Dame, she would have said, I'll burn Florida State to the ground if you could go to Notre Dame. She wanted me there so bad. Yeah, it is that kind of, but I know a ton. You're right about that. All right. So USC this year with Lincoln Riley, going like this, last year was the same story for Lincoln Riley when it came to, you have an offense that most people can't stop, and you are all over the field all the time on that side of the ball. But when it comes down to it, against good teams and against bad teams, a lot of times you just can't get in their way and keep them out of the end zone. They have made a significant investment in the transfer portal on defense. Does it make a difference for them this year, or does he have to maybe make a significant investment in a different defensive coordinator?
I think the latter. I understand the roster was what the roster was. Mm-hmm. I was surprised he brought Alex Grinch back, because, how many years of this do we have to see? His teams are successful, but his faith and loyalty to Alex Grinch, I'm not sure about you, Paul, but it's surprising, because his defenses have been bad. And this is year after year after year now. We're seeing just not much improvement. And look, Oklahoma's defense was bad last year. They had Brent Venables, but like that's Alex Grinch's defense. And so, I'll believe it when I see it. And for them, they've got a schedule that features Washington, Oregon, Utah, and this new look Notre Dame team, and at UCLA as well too. So those are 5 games that I think we all believe are going to be somewhat of significant defensive challenges for USC. Do they pass all of those tests? I doubt it. Now, does the defense have best tests, flying colors? Not really sure. I mean, we saw last year, they got in a couple shootouts, and if things go differently, the second Utah game was standing. But like that first game was, that was rock'em sock'em robots back and forth all the way. But you can't play 4 or 5 of those every single year and come out on top in all of those games. It's just not going to happen for you. So I'm not sure if they need market improvement. I think they do. I think they need market improvement. If they want to go 11-1, they're going to need market improvement. If they want to go 12-1, they're going to need market improvement. And I think that's what it's going to take to get into the CFP for them. Although they do have Caleb Williams, and I think it does help with kind of the ratings and being a CFP darling. But I think they need to go 1 loss, and I'm not sure they can do it if they play defense like they did last year.
Well, and look, that conference is going to be wild. I mean, you have I talked about it earlier in the show. You mentioned the team. Like, look, I think. And again, there's 4 teams in the playoffs. So even for the teams you think are going to go, like Georgia, everything still has to go perfectly for you to be sure to get there. But they have 4 teams, maybe 5, if everything goes perfectly for them, could wind up in the playoff. USC, obviously, Oregon, Washington, Utah, which I got something to talk about here in a second with Utah. And I think with DJU, who I think with Jonathan Smith's offense and that will do well, Oregon State could sneak up and surprise a lot of people.
And we shouldn't be surprised if they do it, right?
Yeah.
It's 10 wins. Now, I will say this. I think, and we do this a lot in college football, right? Like I think I'm looking at Tennessee and South Carolina this year because they had such good years last year. I think people are depending on them to get better. Like Oregon State won 10 games last year, and they're bringing in Jonathan Smith. I think they do have a lot back from that team. And Washington won 10 games, but you're kind of capping out, like that's kind of where those programs maybe Washington a little bit better than that, but that's kind of your ceiling. The big key is, do you get caught by those teams in those games? And the good news for USC is they did not draw Oregon State this year, right? So that is huge for them. They did not draw Oregon State. So they are avoiding that, but they do have everybody else. The good news is most of them are at home. Notre Dame is the one road game, and then Oregon is the other one. So in conference, Oregon's the big road game, and then out of conference, obviously Notre Dame is the big road game. So those 2 programs too, man. Yeah, they'll be competing definitely for a chance to make it. I'm just wondering if they do take a little bit of a step back, just because they did kind of tap out last year. I think Washington maybe has a little bit more to go, but Oregon State 10-win season. It's about as good as you can get at Oregon State.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, on Utah news, they have released their 2 deep. Cam Rising is listed as their starter, and we know he's going to be starter when he gets back. I just don't know if Bryson Barnes, by the way, listed as the backup quarterback, who I think you'll see next week against Florida. But Cam Rising has kind of let it out there that, I'll be all right. Do you believe it?
So the injury stuff, it's difficult, right? Because we know, and the college coaches are allowed to play stuff very close to the vest. Also, I'm not sure if you saw this interesting stuff Brett McMurphy had today. The Big Ten's got to release their injury reports a couple hours, which I thought was fascinating. Not sure how you thought about that, but that's fascinating.
I'm all for it. I think that
I am too. I think eventually it's going to be like the NFL.
I think you have to go that way. You've already got a gambling issue you have to deal with in the NCAA anyway. So you might as well lean into what you need to lean into and make sure that you're completely on the up and up. And I just as a media member get so tired of coaches like, well, so is so and so going to play? But and you're like, I don't. Yeah, I think he could be. He's trending that way. Like, just tell me.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think I get they want to play tricks on us, but we are in a culture. Remember when the Oklahoma kids were on top of the journalism building or in one of the windows having to watch practice to see if it was Rattler or Caleb Williams running with the 1s, the 2s. Like, we should not be having to do that kind of stuff. We should get more honesty from the coaches. So I think that would be, I think we should eventually just get to the point, where we get that. But look, Cam Rising, it was January 1st we saw it happen. We're now or whenever the Rose Bowl, I think it was January 1st, whatever it was. August 25th, that's a pretty significant turnaround, right? Now, he is a young man in the physical prime of his life, so we'll see. But Utah better, actually, I'm not even sure they need Cam Rising to win that game.
It's at home. It's at home.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And Rice Eccles is a really good advantage. Now, notorious slow starters Utah are.
Yeah.
Notorious slow starters. So we will see. But I think if I'm them, like your goal this year is another Pac-12 championship. I think that is for them. They're building right now upon what they had the last couple of years. I would protect Cam Rising at all costs. This game, I don't think ultimately defines what their season is. You could say, well, they're a playoff contender or whatever. Yeah, I mean, this team needs to win a New Year's Six Bowl first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that is, we've seen them come up against it now twice, Penn State and Ohio State, and basically Ohio State's backups, and they were not able to get the job done. So, like, that's what they're building towards, I think. Of course, you could always go the TCU route and just jump the line and go ahead and win a playoff game. Mm-hmm. But I think for them, they're trying to build more. And so it's about the long season for them. And I do think they can beat Florida at home without Cam Rising, because I have to think, Paul, that he has not been – Bryson Barnes has taken a fair amount of the snaps in practice for them. And so they should be pretty comfortable with him at quarterback, at least that first matchup. And then that buys you a little bit more time to get Cam Rising as healthy as possible. And it gives you a couple more weeks to do so.
Josh Neighbors, Neighborhood Watch on Crystal Ball College Football. Head over to that channel. It's also one of ours. Like, subscribe, watch Josh's show when it comes out each afternoon. Josh, thanks so much. Talk to you soon, man.
Anytime, Paul. And I'm glad that you've retired from the high school football beat. Good for you. You know what? I'm done with hot Friday nights. I'm over it. I'm done. And I'm, you're over it. So good for you.
Yeah, I'm free as a bird, baby. Free as a bird. Anyway, thank you, Josh. When we come back, the top 5. This is 365 Sports.